Hey guys, welcome back to my bench. Today's video is actually one that I did as a private video for a young man named Gabe. His parents contacted me in email and said that their son wanted to fix a 528E by doing a capacitor replacement, and that could I give him a couple of hints on how to do it. And I said, sure, and gave him some hints, and I thought, you know what, why don't I just make a video directly to him and put it up private and let him go through it and give him some hints that way. It would probably be the easiest way to show him how to repair them. And they watched it, I guess, as a family on a big screen. He fixed the 528. He did a full cap replacement. Everything worked. They've got it, and it's working, and everything's fine as far as they told me. So after that, they wrote me back, and they said, "Hey, go ahead and put that thing up for other people to watch. Make it public." And I said, "Well, okay." So here you go. I didn't do any editing on it. This is just the way I made it for Gabe, and everything turned out great. So here you go. Hi, Gabe. I hear that you want to recap one of these guys on your own. And I say, you know what? Go for it. However, I don't know how many of the videos you've actually watched of mine, but I thought maybe I'd get in here and just give you a couple of hints as to the right way to do these and the easiest way to do them, because I've done dozens of them. I'll tell you, there are lots of them. If you've watched any of my videos on this, you'll know that there are a couple of things that you really need to know, because if you don't do it right, you're going to mess the thing up to the point where you're going to be replacing some of the traces on the board and maybe never get the thing working right again. So you got to be careful. So I thought I'd go through here and just give you these little ideas here. So what we have, this is it with its just open with the top off of it. And first thing you got to do is you got to get it apart. There's lots of screws to take out. And you need a couple of different screwdrivers to do it. And you'll also need a set of these things, or at least one of a set of these things, and a couple different screwdrivers. You need to take off these three here, these two back here in the corner where the AC plug is. You have to undo this one little ground connector here off the side. You have to undo that. You have to get these off of here. And if you notice, some of these, this one does, some of these have a plastic screw here. That plastic screw is there because whoever designed this didn't think about it very well sometimes, and they put a metal screw in here and it shorted out the B+ lines coming onto this top display board. Anyways, remember there's a plastic screw there. So basically what you do is you take out these three here. You don't need an electric screwdriver. You can use a regular one. They're not long screws. Okay, and these are a little longer than the others. Okay. And all these screws that you just took out there, they all take a number one bit or two, a number 2 bit. And these up here do too, except for this plastic one, which I'm going to take out now. It takes a number 1. The slots in the top of it aren't quite as good, as big. But remember, you got to put that back in, or throw it on the floor. Hang on. Okay. I recommend you don't throw yours on the floor. Anyhow, so you always want to, anyway, don't do that. And then you take your knobs off the front. I noticed this one that you sent me is missing one of the knobs. I've got some spares. I'll stick one on here for you. And then you have these little hex heads here. You got to take those out also, if I've got the right. No, I'm missing the 5/16. Hang on. Okay, I had to go get a set of security bits because I can't find my 5/16. Ones you use a lot of, you tend to lose. Anyway, you got to take these guys out here. They're not generally in there very tight, thank goodness. Depending on the version of this that you have, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one up here. Some of them, the one in the middle is not the same. It's not tied to them. Some of it isn't. There's about 5 or 6 different versions of this. Device. Wow, brand new bit. They stick it in here. Wow. That one is in there. Why would that be in there so good? There we go. Like I said, sometimes they stick in there pretty good. All right, and then you take this off, set it aside. And then you have to take off, and don't forget these. Got to take these off the bottom. Yeah, I know there's a lot of screws to this. Okay, and now, also depending on which version you have, back here you will have, these are your XLR connectors. This is the mic input, line input, and this is the output. They'll have either 1 or 2 screws here, or they'll have no screws here at all, and there's a little thing that you have to poke inside of their little screwdriver that you have to poke in the inside to get them out, but you probably won't see one of those. Anyway, these screws back here are number 1s. This particular version has 3. Okay, now you're almost done, except you got this guy over here, which you've got to unscrew. If your machine has never been touched before, this one will have Loctite on it, and you just gotta unscrew it the old-fashioned way, because that Loctite will just keep it on there. You want this to be tight when you put it back on too, because this is the ground that keeps everything from humming, especially if you're in a radio station with a lot of RF around from the outside antenna. If the antenna is right outside the back door. So anyway, when you put that back on, make sure it's good and tight. All right, so you got all those out. You got the bottoms out. You got the sides out. You got the front off. Now this whole thing lifts right out of here, and it's got this little piece of paper. Make sure you keep that. All right, so now you have this out of the box. Now you're going to replace the capacitors, and the capacitors you're going to be replacing, let me get this up here. go. In most of the units, those screws will be black, but they're the same as the rest of them. So will those. All right, so the capacitors you're going to be replacing in here are going to be all of these little 4.7s. There's 14 of them. There's 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. These are very important over here in the power supply because they keep it from oscillating and making all kinds of noise and being awful. So don't forget those over there. You don't really have to worry about the 10s. I've never seen a 10 bad in any of these. You're also going to be replacing all of these through holes. This one has 2,000 microfarad, 50 volts here, 100 microfarads, 100 volts here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think those are 47s at 100, 47 at 100 microfarads, and one 6.3 volt, 1,000 microfarad over here. Other versions have 2 more of these here. Okay, I just want to cut in here for a little bit. The capacitors you're going to replace, the 2 big 1,000 microfarad 50 volts, the 47 at 100, the 6 of them, or 5, or however many you've got, and the 100 at 100 microfarads at 100 volts, those are all polarized. You have to make sure that you put them in the right way. The board is marked plus with a plus sign, so make sure you put the plus sign of the capacitor there. Don't put these in backwards. Make sure they're in the right way, but just be careful and see what you're doing, and you'll be just fine. Over here, and 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of these 47 microfarad 50 volt non-polarized. These are all non-polarized to these 4.7s, so you have to order them that way. The thing we got to talk about is when you're going to go to replace specifically these guys here, these big ones, there is a way to do that you have to follow. If you look over on the back, you'll see that they're right here. This is where they're connected. See if I can get you in here and show you. Come on. There we go. It gets a little grainy when we do this, but they are right here. If you see them, you have to have a pair of dikes, wire cutters like these. Okay, these little flush cut wire cutters. You can buy these cheap. I mean, you can get them for $4 or $5 off of eBay, but you have to have the ones that are flush cut down here. And what you do is you come down and you go down on that as far as it'll go flush, and you cut that tip off. Okay? I'm going to show you why. First of all, you probably don't have one of these guys. Solder sucker. So we're not going to use that. We're going to use 2 different things here. One of these, you can pick these up fairly cheaply. This is a solder pullet, it's called. This is an actual solder pullet. This thing has been around forever. And all it is a little spring-loaded thing on a tube. And when you push the button, it sucks the solder out. So we're going to... Boy, this thing is falling apart. Okay. We're going to see if we can do this, and the best way to do it is to add a little solder to each one of these. Okay. Now I did cut this one off. We'll go back to that in later. Anyway, you heat it up. Make sure this is ready to go. Heat it up. Don't be afraid to give it a little heat. You're not going to hurt it. And suck it off, all right? This thing is hurt. I have another one. I think this one's in better shape. Yeah, oh yeah. This one's in better shape. So let's try another one here. Get it heated up. Solder socket, okay? You get it heated up. You can see it get hot and melt and suck it out, all right? And this one here. All right, now, what you got to know on this is these guys, you'll see, these are not cleanly done. They look like they're empty. They're not, period. And when they put these things on the boards, when they put these capacitors, especially these big through holes, only these big through holes, what they'll do is they will smash this lead with a machine that smashes it and cuts it off so that it's smashed flat and bigger than the hole. If you try to pull these out without cutting them off like we did down here, you are going to rip that feed-through connector, which is just a piece of copper that goes through the hole and connects the top of the board to the bottom of the board. You're going to rip that out. And if you do that, you're going to lose the connection between the top and the bottom, and then you're going to be replacing replacing things with pieces of wire, and you don't want to have to go through that. So instead of trying to do what I just did there with the solder sucker, before you even start, do what I did on this one. Cut these off flush, as far down as you can get them, right down to the bottom of the board. Let's pretend you just cut them off. Put some solder on them like this, and you turn it over sideways. You get a hold of one of these, you heat it up, and you just sort of wiggle it a little. You'll feel it go. It'll go real easy. It'll just like wobble right out of that hole. And you just go back and forth, back and forth. All I'm doing here is just pushing on it. And you see how that's hung in there? It's still hung in there? Well, if I hit this here, it fell right out. All right? That's what you end up with right there. So let's try that again. I've got it. I'm going to wiggle it back and forth. It's very hard to show you this and do it at the same time. Heat it up. Pull it towards me just a little bit so it's crooked. Heat up the other one above it. And push it down just a little bit so it's crooked, going the other way. Heat up the bottom one, heat up the top one, and it'll fall right off in your hand. That's how you want to do it, and that's how you have to do it, okay? Now you can take your solder sucker and cock it up and get it ready to go. Put it on there, clean the holes out, okay? I don't use this very often anymore because I've got the solder sucker. But there we are. The holes are all cleaned out and it's ready to put in some new ones. All right, it's very important that you do that for these two. Mostly important for these two. These other guys, like let's say this 100 here, that one, you generally can you don't even have to pre-solder this one. You just kind of heat up one side, heat up the other side, and just very carefully wiggle it one side at a time, and it'll fall right out in your hands. Where'd it go? Here it is. It'll fall right out in your hands. So that's taking those guys out. All right, that's how these all work. So the best way to do this is to just do these two at a time. Get one out and replace it. Get one out and replace it. Don't try to remember where everything goes when you first start. I've done so many of these I could do it in my sleep. So, I can take them out. Now, as far as these guys go, these little 4.7 microfarads, these guys, there are lots of ways that people say to do these online. There's one specific way that I completely disagree with, because if you do it that way, you're going to be repairing the board, and you don't want to have to repair the board for this. It's a pain in the neck. They say that you could take them and just twist them with a pair of pliers and get them out. No. Especially not on these guys, because these traces that these things are sitting on top of are so fragile that if you try to rip that thing off the board by twisting it, you'll twist those right off. Well, there's a couple of ways to do this. The what I would call the correct way. Where'd my things go? I don't use these at all anymore. If you have one of these guys, this will work, and it'll work pretty well. This one of these. These work okay, and I set mine to about 415 or 410 or 415 degrees. And you can just, the nice thing about these is they get in real close. So if we go down here, we can hit this guy and just hit him on both sides, hold him down there, and eventually this will come loose. Come on. Whoops. There, it's loose. All right. Well, that took a long time. Here it is, and yes, it is very, very hot. There it is. All right. The way I do them now is I take 2 soldering irons. These 2 soldering irons. You don't have to have 2 good ones. You can have 1 good one and 1 cheap one. You want 1 good soldering iron, something decent like a Heiko or something like that, if you're going to continue doing this stuff. So what I do nowadays is I take a soldering iron here, a soldering iron there. I heat it up and pull it off. That's it, right there. That came out that easy. So, once you got them all off, let's say you got all 14 of these off, or you're doing one at a time. One at a time is a good idea if you've never done this before. You take some solder and your good soldering iron. This one has a tip on it, a little curved tip. See that? That's easy for doing these little surface mount jobbies. Anyway, and this one's setting at about 400 degrees C. You just give a little tiny bit here, there and there, there and there, okay? And then you take your capacitor. We'll do one of them here. Okay, here's a cap. 4.3. Now, these are non-polarized, see, so it doesn't matter which way you put them in, but they're marked on the board. If you can see the little angle there, can you see where it has the little angle on the side? Well, if you look at the bottom of the cap, yeah, see the bottom of the cap? It has the little angle, so I just think it's polite to put them back in the same way. So the way I do it is I got a pair of tweezers. These are just cheap ones. These aren't good ones. Now I will admit, this takes a little bit of practice. But basically, what you're going to do is you come in, grab the tweezers, you come in and you heat up this back one here. I keep looking over there because I'm seeing what I'm doing in the monitor. You heat up the back one, so that when you slide this in, come here, when you slide this in, it slides in on that back one right there. So you heat this up, you slide this thing backwards like that, and that's on there, and you'll find that your front one is right there, right where it's supposed to be. You just have to make sure that you keep this straight, and then you take your tweezers and you push lightly down the top, you heat this one up, and you'll feel it fall right into place. Heat the other side, it falls into place, and do the front again, it falls into place. And then you test to see how good it is by wiggle it back and forth, and it doesn't wiggle, it's on there. It's good. Now, when you get done, you've done them all, you have to do this step, because if you don't, you're going to be very sorry. This step is to test. Let's get the meter up here. There, the meter is in ohms mode, or in beep mode. Every meter has this mode, so you don't have to worry about it. Even your cheapest meters out there have this mode. You don't need something fancy to do this. You just get you one of them $25 guys to do you just fine. And you measure across the capacitor from front to back, where you just soldered it in. See, you put your meter here on the pad that you soldered in the front and the pad that you soldered in the back, and it should not beep. If it does this, you shorted it underneath. Don't feel bad. I've done it. I've shorted these things out, and it'll throw you for a loop. So it's just best if you take your meter and measure across your capacitor and make sure it's not shorted in continuity mode on your meter. It's just a good safety precaution, because if you do this and you find that you've shorted one of these, then you're going to be chasing it down what you did wrong. So there you go. There's just a really, I mean, it took me longer to tell you how to do this than it will be for you to do it. It's not going to be easy when you first try, but don't give up. Come on. It's if you learn how to do this, you'll be one of the few people out there that does, and you'll be proud of yourself when you turn this thing on and it works perfectly, I guarantee you. So, if you got any problems and you need some help, you could just email me, and email me at dave@aervblog.com. dave@aervblog.com. I'll answer your questions. You know, if you need some help, I'll guide you through this, okay? All right, guy, good luck. Take your time. Check your work. Make sure it's good. Clean it up when you're done, a little isopropyl alcohol, and I use plain old toothbrush, and clean up your work, and then when you put it all back together, everything's going to be good. Don't forget to cut off all your the pieces on the bottom so that you don't short everything out. But there. I hope that helps a little bit, and I hope that you continue on, and I hope you like it. So, good luck, Gabe. Let me know how it works out for you.